Behind the legendary love story of Johnny Cash and June Carter lie the often overlooked stories of her 3 children. Stories of staggering musical talent, heartbreaking tragedy, and the immense pressure of a legendary name. We all know the icons. We know the songs, we know the undying romance. But what really happened to the children raised in the shadow of their monumental fame, after the spotlight on their famous mother finally faded? In this video, we are pulling back the curtain on the lives of June Carter's 3 children, whose own journeys were as dramatic and complex as any song their parents ever sang. First, we will uncover the story of Carlene Carter, the fiery firstborn who inherited the family's musical genius, but fought a rock and roll battle with her country roots and her own personal demons. Next, we will explore the gentle life and the shocking, untimely death of Rosie Nix Adams, the gifted songwriter whose tragic fate remains one of the Carter family's deepest and most painful sorrows. And finally, we will delve into the life of John Carter Cash, the only child of both Johnny and June, who was tasked with the unimaginable burden and privilege of carrying their colossal legacy into the 21st century. To bring you these complete untold stories, I've spent weeks digging through rare biographies, obscure press archives, televised interviews, and personal memoirs. We're not just going to list facts from a Wikipedia page. We're going to piece together the human experience of what it was truly like to be a child of June Carter. So stay with me, because the reality is more fascinating and more heartbreaking than you can possibly imagine. Number 3. Carlene Carter. Most people know the Carter name, a name synonymous with the very foundation of country music. But what happens when you're born into that dynasty and your heart beats to the defiant rhythm of rock and roll? That was the beautiful lifelong struggle of June's firstborn, Rebecca Carlene Smith, known to the world as Carlene Carter. Born on September 26, 1955, Carlene was country music royalty from her very first breath. Her mother was the effervescent June Carter, and her father was the handsome chart-topping country singer Carl Smith. Her grandmother, Maybelle Carter, was nothing less than the matriarch of country music. Carlene was steeped in the genre before she could even walk. When her parents divorced and June later married the formidable Johnny Cash, Carlene and her younger sister Rosie were enveloped into one of the most famous and famously tumultuous families in American history. She spent her youth on the road, a wide-eyed child watching from the wings as Mama June and Big John captivated the world. Music wasn't a choice for her. It was the air she breathed. She learned piano at a young age and was writing her own songs by her early teens. Songs that already hinted at a perspective that was uniquely hers. But while the family business was pure, unadulterated country, Carlene was absorbing other sounds. The British invasion, the raw energy of rock and roll, and the burgeoning punk scene of the 1970s all called to her. She felt a pull towards a sound that was grittier, louder, more rebellious than the hallowed halls of the Grand Ole Opry. Her personal life began with the same velocity as her musical ambitions. She married young at just 16 years old to Joseph Simpkins Jr. and soon had her first child, a daughter named Tiffany. The marriage was short-lived, setting a pattern of whirlwind romance and fierce independence that would define much of her early life. In 1978, at the age of 23, she decided it was time to step into the spotlight. But it had to be on her own terms. She flew to London, the epicenter of the new wave music scene, to record her debut album. The self-titled record, Carlene Carter, was a critical success, but a commercial puzzle. It wasn't country. It wasn't quite rock. It was a bold, unapologetic fusion that American audiences weren't quite ready for. The album cover itself was a declaration of independence. A defiant-looking Carlene chewing bubblegum, staring down the camera. It was a world away from the wholesome pastoral image of the Carter family. She was signaling her rebellion loud and clear. Her follow-up albums, like the brilliant Musical Shapes, continued this trend, blending her innate country storytelling heritage with a sharp rocking edge. During this creatively fertile time in England, she married the British rocker and producer Nick Lowe. Their marriage was a collision of creative genius and volatile personalities, producing fantastic music but a turbulent home life. Still, mainstream country radio back in Nashville didn't know what to do with her. She was too rock for country and too country for rock. an outcast in her own kingdom. It wasn't until the early 1990s that Carlene found the magic formula that would finally bring her the commercial success she deserved. She returned to Nashville not in defeat, but with a renewed sense of purpose. She embraced her roots more overtly and released the album I Fell in Love in 1990. The title track was a smash, a top 5 hit. The music video showcasing her vibrant, infectious personality was played in heavy rotation on CMT. She followed it with Little Love Letters, an album powered by the massive, unstoppable hit Every Little Thing. For a moment, Carlene Carter was on top of the world. She had done it. She had finally reconciled her rebellious spirit with her family's legacy, and won. But behind the scenes, a storm was brewing. Her life had always been a tightrope walk, and the pressures of fame, a grueling tour schedule, and a predisposition to the troubles that plagued her family began to take their toll. Her relationship with the gifted but deeply troubled musician Howie Epstein, the bassist for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, became the defining relationship of her life. Their love was deep and passionate, but it was also mired in a shared addiction that would spiral out of control. The late 90s and early 2000s became a dark period. Carlene's recording career stalled. She and Epstein faced multiple arrests for drug possession and auto theft after being found in a stolen vehicle. The headlines were a stark, painful contrast to the celebratory Carter Cash narrative. She was living the heartbreaking lyrics of a country song, not just singing them. Then came the year 2003, a year of unimaginable, relentless loss. In May, her beloved mother, June Carter Cash, passed away. Just weeks later, as Carlene was grappling with this immense void, her world was shattered again when Howie Epstein died of a drug overdose. As she was reeling from this double blow, her stepfather, the patriarch Johnny Cash, also passed away in September, many say from a broken heart over losing June. And just 1 month after that, the final brutal blow. Her younger sister Rosie was also gone. In the span of just 5 months, Carlene Carter lost her mother, her stepfather, her sister, and the love of her life. It was a depth of grief that would have utterly destroyed most people. She retreated from the public eye, forced to confront her demons and her sorrow head-on, without the buffer of her family's powerful matriarch. But Carlene Carter is a survivor. She inherited the Carter resilience, the grit that ran through her grandmother Maybelle's veins. After a long period of healing, she slowly, bravely returned to music. Her 2008 album, titled Simply Stronger, was a raw, powerful testament to her grief and her profound will to live. It was a tribute to the family she had lost and a declaration of her own strength. Today, Carlene Carter continues to tour and record. She has found peace and sobriety. Her story is one of fierce resilience, of a woman who fought to forge her own identity against a monumental backdrop, who fell into the darkest of valleys, and who clawed her way back into the light, finally at peace with being both a Carter and uniquely triumphantly herself. Carlene's story is one of a public battle, of finding light after immense darkness. But while she navigated her struggles in the headlines, her younger half-sister Rosie lived a much quieter life full of her own gentle talent. Her story, however, would not end in a comeback, but in a sudden tragic event that still haunts the family to this day. Number 2, Rosie Nix Adams. What is it like to be the quiet one in a family of musical giants? June Carter's second daughter, Rosanna Lee Nix, known to everyone as Rosie, lived that reality. But her gentle nature hid a profound songwriting talent, and a story that ends in a way no one could have ever foreseen. Born on July 13, 1958, Rosie was the daughter of June Carter and her second husband, a former football player and police officer named Edwin "Rip" Nix. Like her older sister Carlene, Rosie was quickly and lovingly brought into the Carter Cash fold when her mother married Johnny. Where Carlene was fiery and rebellious, Rosie was often described by the family as sweet, sensitive, and deeply introspective. She possessed the family's musical DNA, but she expressed it in a different, more reserved way. She was a gifted songwriter and a talented vocalist, often found harmonizing with her mother and aunts as part of the revived Carter Family Act that toured the world with Johnny Cash. For many years, she was a fixture on the Johnny Cash Show, her smiling face and clear bell-like voice a constant, comforting presence behind her famous mother and stepfather. She co-wrote songs, but for the most part, she seemed content to be a supporting player rather than chasing the solo stardom her sister Carlene pursued. She found joy in the music itself, in the sacred act of family harmony, and in her deep, abiding love for her mother. The bond between Rosie and June was said to be incredibly close. She found a happy life away from the intense spotlight, marrying bluegrass fiddler Jimmy Campbell. She pursued her passion for music, quietly surrounded by family, building a life on her own terms. In the fall of 2003, Rosie was working on a music video project, something she was deeply passionate about. She and her husband were using a converted school bus for travel, and it was parked near the Cumberland River in Montgomery County, Tennessee. To stay warm against the late October chill, they used portable propane and kerosene heaters inside the bus. This decision would prove to be fatal. On October 24, 2003, authorities were called to check on the bus. Inside, they found a scene of silent, heartbreaking tragedy. Rosie Nix Adams, at the age of just 45, along with her husband, had passed away. The cause of death was determined to be accidental carbon monoxide poisoning. The heaters running in the poorly ventilated space had filled the air with the deadly odorless gas as they slept. Her death was a devastating, incomprehensible blow to a family already shattered by grief. It was less than 6 months after her mother June's passing, and just over a month after Johnny Cash's. For her sister Carlene, it was the fourth unbearable loss in a single cursed year. Rosie's story is not one of scandal or fame, but of a quiet talent and a life cut short by a cruel twist of fate. A somber reminder of the fragility of life, even within a legendary family. The loss of Rosie was a devastating wound that the family would carry forever. From this crucible of immense fame and profound loss, one figure was left to carry the entire weight of the combined Carter-Cash legacy, their only son, John Carter Cash. Number 1, John Carter Cash. He has his father's name and his mother's legacy. But being the sole child of Johnny Cash and June Carter came with a pressure few could ever imagine. How did he not only survive it, but become the definitive guardian of their flame born? March 3rd, 1970, John Carter Cash was the living embodiment of country music's greatest love story. He was the prince of the Carter-Cash dynasty, a child born not just to parents, but to global icons. His childhood was anything but ordinary. He grew up in the famous house on Old Hickory Lake in Hendersonville, a house filled with presidents, music legends like Bob Dylan and Waylon Jennings, and literary giants. But it was also a house that witnessed his parents' most profound battles with addiction and their incredible shared journey of faith and redemption. From a young age, he was on stage, a part of the family's traveling musical caravan. He learned firsthand from the masters. However, growing up in such a colossal shadow was an immense challenge. He has been incredibly candid in his books and interviews about his own struggles to find his identity and his own harrowing battles with addiction. A family affliction he ultimately and thankfully overcame. While he has released his own music, John Carter's greatest contribution has been as a producer and as a preserver of his family's sacred history. He was instrumental in his father's astonishing late career renaissance. He produced several of the now legendary American Recordings albums alongside Rick Rubin. These raw, stripped-down albums introduced Johnny Cash to an entirely new generation and cemented his status as a timeless, universal artist. It was John Carter who was there in the studio, helping his aging father find the strength to deliver some of the most powerful performances of his life. After his parents passed away in that tragic year of 2003, John Carter became the custodian of their legacy. He manages the historic Cash Cabin studio, a place where his father recorded many of his final iconic songs. Today, it's a sought-after recording spot for top artists, and John Carter is a Grammy-winning producer in his own right, having worked with legends like Loretta Lynn, Willie Nelson, and Sheryl Crow. He is not just managing a museum. He is keeping the creative spirit of the place alive. He has also become the family's primary historian. He has painstakingly curated and produced posthumous albums from the vaults, sharing unreleased music from both Johnny and June with the world. More importantly, he has written multiple books about his parents, including a candid and loving biography of his mother titled Anchored in Love, which gives the world a glimpse of the woman behind the legend. He has not merely preserved their legacy, he has enriched it. He has ensured that the story of Johnny Cash and June Carter is told with authenticity, love, and unflinching honesty, warts and all. He has shouldered an impossible burden and carried it with grace, ensuring his parents' light will never ever go out. The stories of Carlene, Rosie, and John Carter Cash are powerful testaments to resilience, tragedy, and the enduring power of family. John Carter's dedication in particular ensures the music of his parents will never fade. Interestingly, this theme of children navigating a famous musical heritage is something we've explored before on this channel. In a previous video, we dove deep into the life of another music icon, Ricky Nelson, a man who went from TV teen idol to a bona fide rock and roll pioneer. His story of fighting for his own musical identity has some incredible parallels. You can watch that video by clicking the link that has appeared on your screen. And just like the Cash Carter clan, Ricky's own children have incredible stories of their own. We're actually deep in research for a future video on Ricky Nelson's 5 children, the untold story right now. So make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on because you won't want to miss it.